I'm back, everyone. It is Shaman Busy with AFFCMY's pre-conference interview series, giving you all the information that I can about this year's conference and the presenters that will be there. So let's take a look at this next interview that I did right now. Hey, everyone, we are back. Let's take a look at this next workshop presenter and find out a little bit about them. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you're connected to the adoption and foster care community.
Thank you for having me. I am Abby Hasberry. I am a transracial adoptee, adopted at birth, at 3 months old, and also a birth mother. So have kind of connected in two ways. In addition, as I transitioned careers a couple years ago, I decided that what I wanted to do was also provide therapy to adoptees and birth parents and adoptive families. So a lot of things going on in the adoption constellation.
Yeah, no. So one of the questions I was going to ask you was how did you make that decision to go from, so it was a teacher and principal, and now you trans over to the therapies. Was there something that kind of gave you a push to do that? It was just something natural.
Yeah, so a little bit of both. Definitely natural, just because as a principal, all those years, just talking to people, developing people, that's just kind of part of who I've become and part of my identity. But specifically doing therapy for adoptees came as I retired from being a principal. I had a lot more time and I started joining Facebook groups and like kind of just talking to people who were adoptees. And I had quite a few who were asking me how I had become so balanced and so okay, especially as a transracial adoptee, how I was so strong in my identity as a Black woman. And so I started doing kind of one-on-one calls, and I quickly realized that there was more than just like, let's have a conversation and talk, that there was therapy that really needed to be done and some healing that really needed to be done. And there was some serious trauma in some cases. And so as we were talking and we started looking for adoption informed therapists for some of the women that I was talking to, it was like next to none. It was very hard to find. One, adoption informed; two, people who were understood transracial adoption and identity; and then three, who were people of color, and specifically Black women. There just weren't many. So I said, hey, I see a need. Let's go back to school. I love school. Let's go back to school and fill this need. So that's pretty much the story.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I like asking this question because it's usually some kind of story or just a pull to you're sharing your part of your story. You also published a memoir. If I see
it's publishing, it's coming. Yes, still coming.
It's coming. Okay.
Yes.
But it's written. So
yes.
how do you find the strength? Because it's difficult. Like no matter what, it is difficult to take your personal story and now share it to the masses. What made you decide to want to do that? That's amazing, but why? Why did you do it?
Yeah, I ask myself that question all the time.
I know. Listen, it's great to share your story because it yes. Because obviously it's important. These stories are important, but why particular for you?
So I really believe that adoptees have been kind of left out of the adoption narrative. Adoptee voices just aren't the strongest voices, and we are the ones who are affected the most by it. And so I wanted to just share my voice and lend my voice to be part of that narrative. One, because I think that when you hear stories that you resonate with, it normalizes it and makes you feel better about your own story. And if people are afraid or to share or are silenced because of whatever stigma they may feel, it just keeps it's like oppression. It just keeps pushing your story down and making you feel like something's wrong with you. And so if I'm going to say, let's not have secrets, I don't want to be a secret, which I don't want to be in reunion and all of that, then I need to be able to be vulnerable and share my story to normalize the adoptee voice.
Let's go on to your workshop title. It's Becoming Black, Identity Development and Transracial Adoption. Why don't you give us a little snippet of what kind of things will you be talking about for everyone to hear?
So I will be talking about my experience, some experiences that I've had as a therapist, but really about racial identity development, just because as we are taken from our families of origin, regardless if you're transracial, international, or even just if you're not just, but even if you are a domestic same-race adoptee, there is a huge identity learning curve that people don't have when they're just kind of in a family of origin. And so it really is a story of how I learned how to be proud of being a Black woman in a very white community and also a white family. And just talking about racial identity development, professional identity development, just all the things that we need to become who we are, because in order to really go out in the world and make a difference and be proud and be healthy and mentally okay, we have to have a foundation, and we don't have a foundation if you don't know who you are. And so really settling in on who you are, understanding your identity, understanding how you navigate the world is that basic kind of thing that we need to have. That is not, it's just not something that you necessarily get as an adoptee when you're questioning who you are and how you live in this world, how you live in your family, how you live in the community. So it's just basically my story with a lot of other stories and some research.
Well, the last question I always ask, and I say it, I repeat it all the time, I sound like a broken record, but all workshops, I believe everyone should see. I know it always asks what's your intended audience, and it's always good. I understand but why do you feel that this topic is something for everyone to hear?
So everyone can work on identity development, no matter what. We all need to know who we are. And I think that anyone, adoptee, adoptive parents, anyone who is connected to adoption in any way would really learn a lot just about grounding yourself, having a foundation, knowing your why, being confident in who you are, and how that is a process. It's not something that's just given, it's something that's intentional and is a process. And so really, I do think that while the focus is on adoption and adoptee, and I will share a little bit of my story as a birth mother as well, but while the focus is on the adoption constellation, it really is just about how we become who we are and how we make our life what we want to make our life.